who do you guys want as the next manager? I mean, we're running out of targets day by day. Vincent Kompany signed a new long-term contract at Burnley. Nagelsmann is out the running. Poch has gone to Chelsea. Xabi Alonso could even be staying at Leverkusen for another year. So that kind of leaves us, I'm looking at the odds, it leaves us with Arne Slot, Brendan Rodgers, Thomas Frank, Graham Potter, Ryan Mason, Ange Postecoglou, Ruben Amorim, and Oliver Glasner, and maybe a De Zerbi, which I can't see us, getting him out of Brighton. So,
by the way, Dan Kilpatrick just tweeted saying Ryan Mason is increasingly looking like an option for Tottenham.
I knew it. I absolutely knew it. But Dave, what are you thinking? Who do you want as the next manager from that list of names, or maybe a new name you've got?
Look, out of the list of names for me, look, first of all, I definitely don't want Ryan Mason to get it. He needs to go and play his trade elsewhere. He needs to develop as a coach elsewhere. He got absolutely tactically outdone by Emery, and this was my biggest concern about him getting the job. Once there's more of a bite-sized sample of his tactics and they're analysed a lot more, what questions or what answers has Nagelsmann got to, or Mason got to that when other managers set up for when his tactics are known? And for me, I don't think he has that, as proven against Aston Villa. Emery literally told him, I'm going to take Potter out of the game in his pre-match press conference. We had no answer to it. We still persisted with Ben Davies on the left. So that, for me, just shows that Mason isn't good enough, and you should be very careful always hiring a manager off a caretaker sample, purely because it's very easy for them players to pick themselves back up and gather a couple of results to make it look like it's the previous manager's problem, like we've seen at Tottenham for the last 3-4 years. Every manager that comes in here initially starts off well, and then it tails off because senior pros that have been here quite some time don't fancy it anymore, or we've done a lot of recruitment there. The next one's out the door. They take their foot off the gas. That manager sacked. Who's the ones that benefit? Them players. For me, look, who do I want? I think Postecoglou or Amorim for me. Postecoglou has done an absolute brilliant job at Celtic. So he has. I was listening to Joe Hart do the Ben Foster podcast the other day, and he was speaking about the job that Postecoglou has sort of done at Celtic, and this guy is an absolute brilliant man manager. That's what he's all about. He actually came from the J League with zero coaches or anything else, purely worked with what Celtic had in place in the background, and look at the job that he's managed to get out of all them people there. He hasn't gone in there and spent masses of amounts of money. The money that he has spent, he spent very, very wisely. And them Japanese boys that came over, that's from him. That's his recruitment. He's the one that put them on the radar, and they've done a very good job for him. And when he first came into Celtic fans were very uninspired. They didn't know sort of what was going on. The media were absolutely caning them, but very, very quickly Postecoglou has sort of turned them around. So for me, I think he would be a good choice at Tottenham. However, I have my doubts over the experience at maybe a top level. You got to remember, this guy has only sort of had the Australian League, the Australian national team, the J League, and then onto Celtic at Scotland. So I think I would rather him over an Arne Slot, for example. I think he has more chance of making that step up to the Premier League than someone like Arne Slot. But look, I really like Amorim at Sporting. When he first came in, he had to get rid of a lot of sort of the old guard that were there for quite some time, which we need to do this summer. He brought in a load of sort of new players. For instance, Pedro Gonçalves, who Spurs have sort of been rumoured with. You've got Paulinho, who ended up going to Fulham. You've got another midfielder that went to Wolves. And a lot of that recruitment that he brought in when he first came in has actually been really, really good recruitment that have since gone on elsewhere. He's also brought Marcus Edwards over there as well, and seems to be getting a tune out of him, which we failed to do. And since he's joined there, he's won League Cup after League Cup after League Cup. He's already got trophies to his names. I like his tactics. He plays on the front foot football. He has a good pressing plan as well. He has a number of ways of pressing opposition into areas of the pitch where we can take the ball off him. So for me, tactically astute, I would go with Amorim. If you want a good man manager that's going to come in here and sort of galvanise everyone and get them the one way, Postecoglou.
Adam, who are you looking at?
Well, you listed off quite a number of names there, and far too many of them terrify me, to be honest. They put me in the sort of the feeling where I'm like, if some of these guys come in, I have a very I'll have a very hard time wanting to tune in to any sport next season at all. Like if Brendan Rodgers, for example, or Graham Potter comes in, I'd find it so difficult to work up the enthusiasm it would take to sit and watch what would unfold as a result of that. It's not an ideal situation, definitely not. I think that we can all agree on that, but I think I'd rather have Ryan Mason there over those kinds of managers, simply because even though he's still earning his stripes, at the end of the day, guys, to be fair to him, he is one of our own. He bleeds lily white. He is very good friends with a lot of the players, to the degree that maybe they will put in a better shift for him next season if he gets to indoctrinate them with his particular brand of football that he wants to play. Obviously, he's been working under Stellini and Conte in recent months, and so he hasn't really been able to embed his particular personal philosophies into the team. So perhaps he'd be able to do that with a lot of the players there being quite fond of him. And I just think that as much as that's still not the ideal, I would probably be more eager to see that than some of the managers that you did list off. In terms of the ones that I would be a bit more optimistic about, I really like Sporting, and I really like what Amorim is doing there. So I think I probably could have a bit of a skip in my step if I found out that he was coming to Tottenham. Also, another one, when you guys did the show the other day, Sim, you were going through some of the strengths and weaknesses of the managers, and you mentioned I think it was you that said that you were somewhat positive on Xabi Alonso, right? That there are benefits to have him coming into the club. So I don't know if you want to reiterate some of his strengths, but he's one person as well that I think, I could probably get behind that a little bit. And I don't know. I think that maybe I used to love this guy back in the day, so I think I'm a little bit on the biased side in this regard. This is a name that hasn't been mentioned, and I'm probably going to get absolutely slated for this. But I loved Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he used to play back in the day. And to be honest,
No, what are you talking
about? I know. Look, when you compare what he did with United at a time when they were on a downturn to what Erik ten Hag is doing now, there's not actually a significant amount of difference. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was able to get Manchester United a really, really slow, falling apart Manchester United to second place in the league. I think I've said this before on a few different channels. It's the romantic in me that sometimes just completely leans in a really bizarre direction, because I just think there's a poetry to football, and there would be something about him coming to Spurs that I'd be like, I could get behind it. But I know that that's just a completely wild, left field, unrealistic, and
That's more than left field, Adam.
It's on a completely different field altogether. But no, it's just something that was kind of in my mind that I wanted to throw out there. But I think of all the realistic options, I think I'd be because I don't watch enough of the football that's played in other leagues for me to really know the ins and outs of each manager's style of play and how they've been getting on. But definitely the ones that have interested me most in terms of what I've heard from, especially from you guys breaking it down, and from what I have seen of Sporting playing, I like Ruben Amorim, and I think Xabi Alonso is someone that I'd have my head turned.
Can I just come in on something that Adam said there about Ryan Mason and that? Like, for me, when I look at that Ryan Mason situation, there's plenty of managers out there in and around his age that have far more experience than what Ryan Mason does. Just because he's one of our own, it doesn't make him anywhere near good enough for the job. Harry Winks was one of our own. Where did that get us?
Yeah.
We at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. And look, I'm not putting what's happening on Ryan Mason. I don't think, even if we don't make Europe, Ryan Mason shouldn't be blamed for this, because it's not his fault at the end of the day. No manager is ever going to work at Tottenham Hotspur until they get the investment they need. We plug the holes in the squad we need. No manager is actually going to work at Tottenham, so I don't blame Ryan Mason. But the reality is, he's just not good enough for the job. There's no real past experience there to give him that job. And I believe if they give him the job, they're making a rod off their own back. 90% of the fan base will not accept that. You might have the 10% who will, who'll be okay with it because, again, he's one of our own, this, that, and the other, but he's not good enough. He's
No, he's
nowhere
not.
near it. He's going to be tactically found out, you know.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we don't need someone that's going to come here and butter these players up and high-five them and do all these little stupid things that they were doing under the Pochettino era. You don't need that. What you need right now is a manager that comes in here that's given full control. So if a player walks into his office, for instance, Danny Rose or Ben Davies, like the documentary, or like under Nuno in Davies' case, where they walk in and say, why am I playing? The manager gives them the answer. And they should not be able to turn around and go, I don't like that, I'm going up to see Daniel. That should not happen. No manager is ever going to survive when that's the case, because how can he assert any power over anything that's going on? If you've got players who are only coming to them out of courtesy, but realistically, they're just going to go straight to the top anyway. You know, and that's exactly what's going to happen with Ryan Mason. They're going to walk all over this guy. They're going to use and abuse that friendship and turf him out exactly when they're ready to. For me, what you need to do is you need to bring in a manager and give him the power. You know, and the final buck stops with him. No more of these players going up to Daniel Levy if they don't like the answer why they're not playing. Accept the answer why you're not playing. Either go and work on it or push for a move out of this club. No longer can we let some of these guys hang around. And, you know, they're just going to absolutely abuse Ryan Mason's friendship. For me, if he gets the job, he'll be sacked within, 3-4 months, in my opinion, and that'll be the end of Ryan Mason at Tottenham. Let this guy go out. Don't screw up. We've already screwed up enough young players' careers at this football club, etc. Don't screw up a young manager's career. Let him go out, develop himself, see how he gets on, and then in the future, if he's done good wherever he's gone, he can throw his name in the ring for the job in the future. You know, Tottenham job is always going to be there for someone like him in the future. So let him go out and develop himself. We don't need to rush into giving it to him just because if he's one of our own and our players want everyone to be friends with them. Sometimes you just need a manager to come in here and have full control. You know, sometimes you need them to be able to assert their dominance and get reactions out of players in another way, out of fear, rather than them being buddies with them. And that's what needs to happen. That's why I don't want Mason anywhere near the job. So many other managers out there around the same age that have better experience.
Look, Dave, I completely get where you're coming from saying Mason isn't good enough for the job. I mean, that's clear for everyone to see. He's a brand new manager, hasn't been in the role, very young, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at it, right, who is good enough for this role? Antonio Conte weren't good enough for this role. Jose Mourinho weren't good enough for this role. Nuno weren't good enough for this role. And by the end of it, Poch weren't good enough for this role either. So unless the hierarchy start acting differently and start giving them the managers what they need to progress in the role, then what's the point of going out there looking for managers? May as well appoint within and vibe it out until we can get something better from this hierarchy, because nothing better is coming from any particular manager, in my opinion. So I genuinely think it doesn't matter what manager now we bring in. If the hierarchy ain't going to change, the same results are going to keep coming back over and over and over again. So why keep burning good managers? May as well stick it out with Mason until something better can come about.
Yeah, but then you're burning him.
You're burning. Yeah, but he loves the club. You know what I mean? He's Tottenham through and through.
That could go either way. I think that could go either way, though. I agree with all of Dave's statements. I do think that at the end of the day, it's entirely probable that if Mason stays on, that he's not going to get the chance to go and flourish somewhere else, become even better, come back and bring his lily white heart to, you know, with all the new experience, to do incredible things with the team. I think he's dead on, but it could go the other way. And I think that as much as there's a possibility that the players will run roughshod over him because of the fact that he is too friendly with them. Excuse me. The other side of things, it could be that because he's that close with them, that they could go that extra mile for him. And I don't believe for a second that he is the best option, but I do. All I was saying was that he's definitely a better option over some of the other guys that were brought up. Even one that was brought up by myself, he's still a better option than some of these guys. And I think that David, just on the comment, I wouldn't necessarily compare him to Harry Winks, because I do think that Ryan Mason has shown a large degree of talent. He might not be ready for Spurs for a job of that has that much weight on his shoulders, but he has shown a degree of talent. Harry Winks shouldn't be playing football. Harry Winks is an absolute waste of space. Ryan Mason had at least the stones and the tactical nous to bring in Emerson Royal as the right-sided centre-back and be able to switch from a 4 at the back to a 3 at the back on a dime. I've been asking for him to be playing in that position for a very, very long time. So to make that kind of decision, to have Emerson Royal and Porro both playing on the right, so you have the possibility, you have both the strengths of the two of them, the defensive and the offensive strengths of the two of them playing at the same time. That was a very, very smart move, a shrewd move, and one that Conte and Stellini wasn't making. And they weren't making that.
Yeah, but we can sit here and say they didn't make them. Look at the injuries we've had. They haven't always had the option to make them choices. Romero was injured for a large part up until the World Cup, so you couldn't play that back three with him being injured. Lenglet's been injured at times this season and stuff like that. So we haven't always been able to put that out there. Now, I'm not making an excuse for like a Conte and people like that. Yes, they could have tried it. I believe many fans would have wanted them to try it. But the reality is, we went to a back four against Newcastle, and look what happened. Now we have to play a flexibility between sort of teams. But the reality is, it was a one game off against Palace. We've still conceded goals against Liverpool, still conceded goals against United, still conceded goals on Saturday against Aston Villa. So the back four, his system isn't exactly working either. And I agree with you, Ben, on what you're saying about what manager is going to work if we're not giving them everything to succeed. Fully agree with you on that, Ben. But the reality is, we can't sit here and pretend that Jose Mourinho didn't use all of his experience to keep us up where we were at the time. It would have been worse if it was a Mason in charge. You can't pretend that Conte hasn't come in here and used his experience and was able to get us top four and stuff like that Mason doesn't have. Mason will be found out in the dugout next year. So although I hear you where it's like, oh, look, if we're not going to give the managers what they want, just give it to Mason. But the reality is, Daniel Levy knows what he's doing. He's relying on the experience of a Conte and a Jose. And that's why, even though they're not going to get what they want, it's still important to bring them in here, because if not, we will be a relegation candidate team.
Yeah, but Dave, the fact of the matter is that we've burnt those experienced managers. We don't have any of those experienced managers left. Anyone with half a brain cell is going to question coming to Tottenham Hotspur right now. And the only ones that are not going to question coming to Tottenham Hotspur are ultimately going to probably be yes men and fall on their sword in 6 to 18 months' time and come out the job anyway. So I don't see what the difference is.
Well, I guess the point is, if we want to appoint a manager who's proven that he can get a team with not little resources, but less resources than maybe is required to get their team playing in a certain way with a certain philosophy of playing football and get that philosophy to be successful. And maybe someone like an Arne Slot, who at Feyenoord has done very well as an Alkmaar, he's now won a league with Feyenoord. He's now also semi-proven anyway in the European stage. He got his team to a Conference League final in his first season. He was a minute away from getting his team to Europa League semi-final as well. This is a team coming from the Dutch league, which they haven't won a league title in quite a long time as well. I think that's the maybe next step for Tottenham if we're going to move forward. We need a manager who can get even look at De Zerbi, how he's got Brighton playing with the investment. Obviously, he's very clever, smart recruitment, but they haven't invested hundreds of millions of pounds to get all these amazing players. It's better coaching within what we've got, and that's what we need. And when it comes to Ryan Mason, I just think in terms of a club putting their eggs in a basket for a manager who the fans can buy into, can actually have a long-term future in the club. I just think the first sign of trouble, I'm not saying the fans will turn on him, but I think we're already going into this with the fans not believing that he's right for the job right now, and that it's too early for him right now. And I think at the first sign of trouble, it's going to just play into that narrative. So if you want to go to that Arteta route and say, look what Arteta did with Arsenal, why can't we do that at Mason? Well, Arteta in his first or second season went on an 8-game losing streak, and they stuck by him. Are we going to stuck by Mason if he goes on an 8-game losing streak? Absolutely no chance. We'll chuck him aside. He won the FA Cup, but I'm saying if he also went on an 8-game losing streak, and then and they stuck by him when the pressure was mounting, and the pressure would be absolutely massive. Sorry?
The board stuck by him. The Arsenal board stuck by him. I don't think the fans did. The fans were calling for Arteta. I'm talking
about the board. I'm not talking about the fans. Yeah, I'm saying would the fans stick by him? Would the board stick by Mason if he went on an 8-game losing streak? I don't think they would. I think it plays into the narrative that he's not ready. This job is too early, and all these different things.
The board don't stick by anyone. That's the problem. We need to be giving managers time to implement their ideas. We need to be giving them power to bring in who they want to bring in and upgrade in positions that we need to upgrade in, and not keep going for third and fourth options every single time. And ultimately, every single manager is going to die on that sword here at Tottenham Hotspur until things change.
Also, I question whether Mason, personality-wise, will because there's such a lot to do with this rebuild right now. There's so much work to do. He's going to have to be quite kind of cutthroat. He's going to have to be very demanding with the board as well. And does he have that personality to be that person? I mean, from what I can see from him, like how he conducts himself at press conferences, obviously he comes across well. But does he come across as a guy who's going to be ruthless when he needs to? I mean, I do question that. I don't know. I don't know if he's at that stage yet. He's still very early on in his coaching career. I know he's been coaching for a long time, and maybe when he has the authority of having that top job, maybe his mentality will change. But I don't see a guy who's ready to take on the size of the job that we have available to us and actually take it on with both hands and be successful here. And I don't even know tactically whether he's up to it. That is just up for question. No one can really know that, whether tactically he has a philosophy that's really gonna that first of all that Tottenham fans can buy into. But that's one thing. But another thing is whether it can be successful and whether it's something that can work. We don't know that. But at least with these other managers who have managed other clubs like a Slot or even a Xavi Alonso, what he's doing right now, even a Graham Potter. I mean, I would still put Graham Potter in the ring, in my opinion, despite the fact he failed at Chelsea. I really would, because I think the Chelsea job was an impossible job. I don't think many managers would have lasted this season, to be honest. Even him, he's got a way of playing which I think the fans can buy into, and I think that the players have mentioned before how they've always been so impressed whenever they come against Brighton under Graham Potter, and how hard they are to play against and how they play attacking football and stuff like that. They have a way of playing that we know can improve teams, but we just don't know about that, Mason.
On that, Sim, if Pochettino goes into Chelsea now with the exact same team that Potter had, and he actually does incredible things next season, does that not mean that Graham Potter is not fit for purpose?
I wouldn't say so, no, because what Pochettino's going to have is he's going to have absolute capability to and be ruthless to say who he wants to keep and who he doesn't. What basically Chelsea did with Potter is first of all, they had a whole summer where they signed about 8 or 9 players in the summer, like Sterling, Aubameyang, Fofana, whoever they signed in the summer. So that was a whole rebuild they did. And then they had a second rebuild in January. They signed about 10 players in January. So they basically dumped a whole load of players on Potter and said, here, you got to deal with this. And they said the changing room was too big. Now Pochettino is going to have a whole pre-season to manage who he's got available, and he's going to be able to cut for it and manage the squad so it's manageable going to the season. So he has a squad of players he can work with going forward, and he doesn't have to deal with 10 or 12 unhappy players, because when you have a match day squad of 18, you've got literally 12 or 13 unhappy players every single week who are causing a bad atmosphere. It was impossible for anyone. It was especially for Potter as well, the first big job. But I think for any manager, it would have been impossible to have a successful season under those conditions. I think even the players themselves realise it was absolutely ridiculous, the situation they've been put in. And I think Pochettino will still have a difficult time, but he'll have a more manageable time with picking the players and having a more manageable squad for next season, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, when it comes to Potter, I mean, I don't want him anywhere near the football club. Both of these clubs have both struggled to score goals, and for me, that's a big flaw in his tactics. You look at Brighton, you can sit here and say the strikers. The reality is, he went through about 10 different strikers there. Not one of them can find the back of the net regularly. You look at Chelsea, okay, yeah, you would say the scoring problems have sort of continued, but for me, it's a big flaw in his game. But the reason why we've got to get this managerial appointment right is you got to just look around at the caliber of the manager in the Premier League nowadays. You've got Jurgen Klopp, you've got Pep Guardiola, you've got De Zerbi, who's proven to be able to handle himself. You've got Lopetegui, Unai Emery, you've got that Lego head at Arsenal. You've got Eddie Howe there. You've got Silva at Fulham. You've got some very tactically astute managers in the Premier League now. And for me, you got to look at it as the manager that we're bringing in here. Can he survive with them tactically? Ryan Mason won't be able to. He just will not be able to survive with them tactically. And if you put him in charge, you're not going to finish in the top half of the table, because as much as it is getting the right team out there and having a good style of play, also your tactics have to be spot on. And he will be found out. And for me, that's why this next appointment has to be absolutely spot on. It's got to be someone that can survive around all these other managers. But most importantly, you just got to back the guy. Like, the thing is, we sit here, we say Mourinho was the wrong appointment, Conte was the wrong appointment. No, they were the right appointments, the right direction and everything else. But you can't do it half-heartedly. You've got to go full on at it. And that's our biggest problem, is never actually giving everyone the finished product, all the tools they need. Like Jose Mourinho, we left him flapping about with wingers. No real enough wingers there. Antonio Conte, you left him without any sort of defenders. And it's like, right appointments, we've just done wrong by them. So, why can't we still go after them sort of guys, but just back them properly, back them with what they need, instead of bringing them in for their expertise and going to, saying, look, we want you for your expertise. Like, you got to understand, with them expertise, you also have to give them the players to be able to implement that. Instead, we bring them in here for their expertise. Then we go to them, no, you've done everything wrong. You're going to do it our right way. And the man just sitting there scratching his head. He goes, like in Conte's case, I've just won a Serie A. Jose Mourinho's case, I've won 25 trophies. You can't tell me I'm doing it wrong. And this is the problem. This is where lies the problem. A manager will work out at Tottenham, and a lot of our appointments have been the right appointments. We've just done wrong by them.
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on, Dave. That is absolutely spot on. And let's be honest, Ryan Mason probably fits this squad to a T. We all heard what all those words Conte said. These players can't hack the pressure. They don't like to play under pressure. Well, Ryan Mason don't like pressure either, apparently, like he said in his press conference only a few weeks ago. I don't like the word pressure, all this kind of stuff. So I think he just suits this squad to a T.